2,000-year-old concrete harbors are still standing strong today. Modern bridges, however, can crumble in mere decades. This is the story of a lost Roman formula, a material so advanced that our best scientists are only now piecing together its secrets. By the end of this journey, you will understand how this ancient knowledge could revolutionize how we build our world. How did Roman piers survive the relentless sea for millennia while ours deteriorate? What hidden ingredient gave their structures a near magical ability to heal their own cracks? We will travel from ancient construction sites to cutting-edge laboratories to find the answers. What does it truly mean to build something that lasts forever? To hold an empire together, you need more than just armies and laws. You need physical bonds, a skeleton of stone and mortar that ties distant provinces into a single, functioning body. At the height of its power, Rome was not just a collection of territories on a map. It was a living network of paved roads stretching over 50,000 miles, aqueducts carrying fresh water across impossible valleys, and harbors that defied the angry sea. This was not the work of chance, but of a deliberate technological revolution. Their secret weapon was a material so versatile it became the literal bedrock of their civilization: concrete. We often think of concrete as a modern invention, the gray stuff of parking garages and sidewalks. But for the Romans, it was a transformative technology, the key that unlocked architectural ambitions previous cultures could only dream of. While others used stone blocks, painstakingly carved and fitted, the Romans pioneered a different approach. They mixed a mortar, poured it into wooden molds, and created monolithic structures that could take any shape, from soaring arches to vast, unsupported domes. This was not just about building things, it was about building things fast on a colossal scale, and in places nature said you couldn't. Most miraculously, they learned to build directly in the water, creating harbors and breakwaters that tamed the coastline. The genius of Roman concrete lay in a perfect marriage of formula and philosophy. They didn't just want structures to stand, they demanded they endure for ages, a testament to the empire's eternal glory. This mindset pushed their engineers to experiment, to move beyond the simple lime mortars used for centuries. They developed a recipe that produced a material of shocking resilience. Look at the Pantheon in Rome, its dome still the world's largest unreinforced concrete dome nearly 2,000 years after it was built. Or the sprawling baths of Caracalla, a complex of such scale and luxury it functioned as a city within a city. These were not just buildings, they were statements in solid form, projects that would give pause to engineers even with all our modern tools. So what was in this legendary mix? The Romans started with a simple binder, lime, but they added a secret ingredient that changed everything: a volcanic ash they called Pulvis puteolanus, found near the Bay of Naples. When mixed with lime and seawater, this ash triggered a chemical reaction that created a binder far stronger and more durable than anything before it. But the true mastery was in their methodology, their understanding of how to place this material, how to layer it, and how to let it cure. They were building for eternity, and somehow, against all logic, their concrete seemed to listen. It is this profound combination of ambition, recipe, and technique that we have spent centuries trying to fully understand, a puzzle written in stone and seawater, waiting to be solved. Yet here lies the great modern puzzle, a paradox written in stone and salt water. Along the coast of Israel, the ancient harbor of Caesarea Maritima stands as a silent witness. Its concrete piers, submerged for 2,000 years in the relentless Mediterranean, are not just intact, they have grown stronger. The waves that have shattered countless modern seawalls have only served to compact and fortify this Roman stone. Now look at our own world. Our bridges, engineered with computer precision, are given a design life of perhaps 50 to 100 years. Our coastal defenses against rising seas require constant, costly reinforcement. This is not a minor footnote in engineering history. It is a glaring contradiction. How could a civilization without electricity or chemistry create a maritime concrete that laughs at time, while our own, for all its sophistication, often succumbs to decay in decades? The answer lies in a fundamental difference in philosophy. Modern Portland cement, the backbone of 20th century construction, is designed to be inert and stable. In the harsh embrace of seawater, however, that stability becomes a weakness. Saltwater penetrates, reacts with the materials inside, and slowly expands, creating internal pressures that crack the concrete from within. It is a slow, inevitable defeat. The Roman material, by stunning contrast, was designed not to resist the environment, but to collaborate with it. Its chemical makeup was inherently reactive, meant to change and adapt over centuries. Where modern concrete fights a losing battle, Roman concrete evolved, transforming seawater from an enemy into a partner in its own longevity. The cost of our current approach is staggering, measured not just in billions spent on repairs and replacements, but in the environmental toll of constantly mining new materials and discarding the old. As climate change intensifies storms and sea levels, the vulnerability of our infrastructure becomes a critical point of failure. Rediscovering the Roman secret, therefore, shifts from an archaeological hobby to a global imperative. It is the search for a material that doesn't just endure our future, but is literally built by it. The search for this forgotten formula begins with a single, crucial ingredient, a clue hidden in the fiery geology of Italy. In the shadow of Mount Vesuvius, near the ancient town of Pozzolana, lies the source of Rome's concrete supremacy, a fine, sandy volcanic ash known as Pozzolana. This was not ordinary dirt, it was the active heart of their recipe. The entire region is a testament to the Earth's raw power, a landscape sculpted by volcanoes, including the vast and restless Campi Flegrei supervolcano. From this volatile ground, the Romans harvested a material that held a remarkable secret. Unlike the inert sand we typically use today, Pozzolana is chemically alive. When mixed with lime and water, it doesn't just sit there, it reacts. It undergoes a slow, complex process that creates a web of incredibly strong mineral bonds, a crystalline glue that grows tougher with time. The Romans didn't just stumble upon this, they recognized its value as a technological treasure. Evidence shows they went to extraordinary lengths to use it, shipping this specific volcanic ash in vast quantities across the Mediterranean Sea to construction sites from the coasts of North Africa to the Middle East. This was a massive, coordinated logistical operation, a clear signal that their engineers possessed not just a recipe, but a deep, empirical understanding. They knew Pozzolana was not a substitute. It was the irreplaceable key that turned simple mortar into eternal stone. But the volcanic ash was only the first part of the mystery. To unlock its full potential, the Romans used a second, seemingly reckless ingredient, quicklime. This is not the benign, powdered lime we might think of today. Quicklime, or calcium oxide, is a highly reactive substance produced by baking limestone in a scorching kiln. When the Roman builders mixed this caustic powder directly with the pozzolana and water, they weren't just making mortar, they were starting a chemical fire. The combination triggers a violent exothermic reaction, releasing intense heat and steam. For generations of modern engineers, this was viewed as a critical mistake, a glaring flaw in their process. Our standard practice is to use slaked lime, a tamed and cooled version, precisely to avoid such thermal shock. The conventional wisdom was clear that much internal heat would create steam pockets and stress fractures, dooming the concrete to a weak and brittle future. It was seen as the imprecise work of an ancient culture that simply didn't know any better. New research, however, has completely flipped this assumption on its head. What if the heat wasn't a bug in the system but the central feature? Scientists now propose that this hot mixing process served a brilliant purpose. The surge of heat may have pre-activated the complex minerals in the volcanic ash, essentially jump-starting the long-term curing reactions from the very first moment. It could have created a more chaotic, reactive microscopic environment from which uniquely durable crystalline structures could grow. This clue forces us to reconsider everything. It challenges the notion that the perfect building material must be mixed in a calm, controlled, and cool manner. The Roman method was dynamic, almost alchemical, embracing a burst of controlled chaos to birth a stronger substance. This means their genius was not just in what they mixed, but in how they mixed it, a fiery recipe we are only beginning to appreciate. So how do we move from ancient texts and crumbling harbors to a working blueprint? The answer lies not in grand theories, but in the invisible world. To truly understand Roman concrete, we must shrink down past the scale of stones and mortar into the realm of molecules and crystals. This is where modern science finally caught up to ancient engineering, using tools the Romans could never have dreamed of, like scanning electron microscopes and X-ray microdiffraction. Researchers began to dissect samples of 2,000-year-old concrete with atomic precision. They weren't just looking at the material, they were mapping its soul. What they found was a microscopic landscape of stunning complexity, a tapestry of interlocking minerals that told a story of continuous change. Among these structures, two key players emerged. The first was a crystalline formation called Strettlingite, a strong, plate-like mineral that acts as a reinforcing fiber within the concrete matrix, adding toughness and resilience. But the second discovery was the true revelation, one that overturned a century of academic assumption. Scattered throughout the Roman samples were countless tiny, white specks, each about the size of a grain of sand. For decades, these were dismissed as mere evidence of sloppy work, lumps of unmixed lime that proved the Romans were not as precise as we are. They were called lime clasts, and they were considered the hallmark of a primitive process. The new high-resolution imaging told a completely different story. These lime clasts were not accidents, they were architecture. They appeared too uniformly distributed, too intentionally preserved within the mix to be mere mistakes. The scientific community faced a stunning possibility. What if these little white specks were not a bug in the Roman formula, but its most brilliant feature? This is where the narrative of ancient concrete transforms from a story of passive durability into one of active intelligence. The hypothesis is as elegant as it is revolutionary. When a tiny crack forms in Roman concrete, perhaps from seismic stress or constant wave pressure, it creates a pathway. Seawater, which we once thought was the destroyer, now becomes the repair agent. As it seeps into that microscopic fissure, it comes into contact with one of these embedded lime clasts. A chemical reaction begins, slowly dissolving the clast. The released lime ions then travel through the water in the crack and recrystallize, effectively gluing the fracture shut from the inside out. It is a built-in repair system, triggered by the very element that destroys modern structures. This self-healing capability is a property modern concrete desperately lacks. Our material is static. Once it cracks, the damage only widens, but the Roman material is dynamic, almost lifelike in its response. It introduces a biomimetic concept where the construction material can autonomously repair its own damage, just as skin heals a small cut. This means the concrete was not designed to remain perfectly pristine, but to gracefully manage its own decay, to heal and thus endure. The implications of this discovery ripple far beyond archaeology, pointing toward a future where our infrastructure could possess a form of longevity we have forgotten how to build. This is perhaps the most beautiful and counterintuitive twist in the entire story. For modern engineers, saltwater is the ultimate adversary, a corrosive soup that spells doom for our strongest structures. Yet for Roman concrete, it was not the enemy but the essential catalyst for its immortality. The very element that systematically dismantles our harbors is what patiently assembled and strengthened theirs over 2 millennia. How is such a reversal possible? The answer lies in a slow-motion chemical dance that begins the moment the concrete is submerged. When seawater percolates through the porous Roman material, it does not sit idly. It begins to interact with the 2 key ingredients we discussed, the reactive volcanic ash and those intentional lime clasts. The water slowly dissolves silica and alumina from the ash and calcium from the lime, creating a rich, mineral-laden solution that circulates within the concrete's microscopic pores. This is not a destructive process but a formative one. Over decades and centuries, this solution undergoes a long-term reaction, precipitating out and growing incredibly rare, stable minerals. The most important of these are crystals with names like altobamorite and philipsite. To us, these are obscure geological terms, but to the concrete, they are architectural reinforcements. These minerals form as tiny, plate-like crystals that interlock with each other and with the surrounding matrix, creating a dense, reinforcing web. Think of it like the concrete growing its own internal skeleton long after it has been poured. This ongoing crystallization does more than just fill space. It actually increases the material's compressive strength over time, making it harder and more resilient with each passing century. The seawater, far from degrading the structure, is constantly providing the chemical feedstock for this silent, centuries-long repair and fortification project. This reveals a profound philosophical split in how we approach construction. Modern marine engineering is often a story of resistance, of creating barriers to keep the corrosive sea out. We fight chemistry with brute force and eventually we lose. The Roman approach was one of integration. They designed a material that was inherently porous and reactive, that invited the seawater in, and then used its chemistry to build itself anew from the inside out. Their formula worked with the environment, not against it, turning a destructive force into a constructive partner. This suggests that for over a century, in our quest to build stronger things faster, we may have been fundamentally misunderstanding the problem. We've been fighting chemistry instead of collaborating with it. This ancient formula now presents a solution to one of our greatest modern challenges. The act of building our world comes with a hidden, staggering cost, one measured not in dollars but in carbon. The production of Portland cement, the universal glue of modern concrete, is an astonishingly energy-intensive process. To create it, limestone must be baked in enormous kilns at temperatures exceeding 2,500 degrees Fahrenheit. This single industrial activity is responsible for roughly 8% of all global carbon dioxide emissions every year. That is more than the entire aviation industry. So we face a difficult paradox. Concrete is essential for everything from housing and hospitals to renewable energy infrastructure. Yet its primary ingredient is a major driver of the very climate crisis we are trying to mitigate. The Roman blueprint offers a radical alternative, a path toward low-carbon construction. Their formula started with a fundamentally different approach. They used less processed lime, and more importantly, they relied heavily on volcanic ash, a material that requires no high-temperature cooking at all. Pozzolana is not manufactured, it is simply gathered. This shift from an energy-intensive binder to a natural, reactive one changes the entire environmental equation. Modern researchers are now actively exploring how to adapt this ancient insight. The goal is not to copy the Roman recipe exactly, but to embrace its core principle, replacing large portions of Portland cement with alternative Pozzolanic materials. These alternatives can come from surprising places. Some are natural, like certain types of clay that are heated at lower temperatures or other volcanic deposits. Others are industrial byproducts that would otherwise go to waste, such as fly ash from coal plants or slag from steel production. When finely ground, these materials behave much like the Roman pozzolana, reacting with lime to form a strong, durable binder. This is where ancient wisdom meets 21st century necessity. By designing new concrete mixes that use 50, 60, or even 70% less Portland cement, we could slash the carbon footprint of our built environment by a corresponding margin. The potential impact is monumental, transforming one of our biggest sources of emissions into a far greener industry. This is not a step backward, but a profound leap forward in material science. It means building the resilient, enduring infrastructure our future demands, while simultaneously healing the environmental cost of its creation. The lost Roman formula is more than a historical curiosity. It is a timely reminder that sometimes the most sustainable path forward is illuminated by the enduring light of the past. But understanding a principle in theory is one thing, proving it in practice is another. The real test of this ancient wisdom is happening right now, not in ancient ruins but in sterile, modern laboratories. Across the world, from the halls of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology to research centers in Italy and Japan, teams of scientists and engineers are on a mission to reverse engineer the Roman miracle. This is not about blindly following an old recipe found on a scroll. It is a meticulous process of forensic reconstruction. They start with the hard evidence, the atomic maps created by scanning electron microscopes of actual 2,000-year-old concrete. These maps are their blueprint, detailing the exact mineral compositions and microstructures they need to replicate. Then, the modern alchemy begins. In carefully controlled environments, they combine raw quicklime, specific types of volcanic ash or other pozzolanic materials, and aggregates, mixing them under conditions that mimic the hot mixing process the Romans used. The goal is not to create a perfect replica for a museum display, but to produce a modern analog that captures the material's dynamic essence. Once the samples are cast, they face the accelerated judgment of time. Researchers place them in tanks of circulating seawater or expose them to harsh chemical solutions designed to simulate decades of marine exposure in just months. They then use the same advanced imaging tools to peer inside, watching for the formation of those key reinforcing minerals like altobermorite, and most importantly, testing for the legendary self-healing property. They deliberately crack the samples and then submerge them, monitoring to see if the fractures seal themselves as the theory predicts. This experimental phase is the critical bridge between fascinating historical observation and usable, certifiable modern engineering. It transforms a story about the past into a dataset for the future. Success here means moving from saying we think we know how they did it to proving we can do it again, in a way that meets the rigorous safety and performance codes required for today's bridges, seawalls, and buildings. It is the process of turning a lost art into a recovered science. While the binder was the chemical heart of the mix, its strength was realized through a carefully chosen skeleton. The Romans understood that what held the paste together was just as important as the paste itself. They were masterful in their selection of aggregate, the filler material of crushed rock and stone that makes up the bulk of any concrete. This was not a matter of using whatever rubble was lying around. It was a deliberate engineering choice. Often, they favored lightweight, porous volcanic rocks like tuff or pumice, materials abundant in their geologically active homeland. But their resourcefulness went further. They routinely incorporated recycled materials like crushed brick and pottery fragments into their mixes. This practice was functional genius disguised as frugality. These porous, irregular aggregates served multiple critical purposes. First, their lightness made the overall mix more workable, easier to transport and place, especially in the complex wooden forms used for arches and domes. More importantly, their rough, jagged surfaces and internal porosity created a perfect mechanical anchor. When the wet, reactive paste was poured over them, it didn't just coat smooth stones, it infiltrated the tiny pores and crevices, locking each piece in place with a grip far stronger than mere adhesion. This created a truly monolithic mass where the aggregate and binder became a single, interlocked substance. The difference is profound when compared to much modern practice. We often use smooth, rounded river gravel, which is efficient to produce but offers less for the paste to grip onto. The Roman approach considered the entire system, how each component, from the fiery quicklime to the humble piece of broken pottery, played a synergistic role in the final product's performance. This holistic, systems-thinking mindset is a quiet testament to their engineering philosophy. They weren't just mixing ingredients, they were architecting a synthetic stone from the microscopic level up, building resilience into every grain and pore. A brilliant formula is useless if you cannot put it where it needs to go. The Romans faced their ultimate test not in a workshop, but in the churning waters of the Mediterranean, tasked with building harbors directly in the sea. Their solution was a masterpiece of practical engineering, a forgotten art of placement that turned liquid mortar into submerged stone. The architect Vitruvius left us a crucial clue in his writings, describing how they would first construct massive wooden forms called cofferdams. These were essentially double-walled enclosures driven into the seabed, creating a temporary dry workspace by pumping out the water trapped inside. But for the concrete itself, the process was more daring. They likely used a method involving long, flexible tubes, precursors to what we now call tremie pipes. The thick, volcanic concrete mix would be funneled down these tubes from the surface, allowing it to be placed directly at the bottom of the form without dispersing in the currents. In some cases, they may have simply dumped the heavy, cohesive mix in large quantities, trusting its density to forcefully displace the water and settle into a solid mass. This was not a delicate operation, it was a controlled deluge of stone. The genius lay in understanding how their specific material behaved in that environment. The concrete's weight, its quick-setting nature when it hit seawater, and its unique chemistry all had to be perfectly matched to the construction method. They knew it would not just sit there, it would cure and harden into a monolith fused with the seabed itself. This practical knowledge of logistics, formwork, and curing conditions was as vital as the chemical recipe scribbled on a tablet. It reminds us that true technological mastery exists in the seamless integration of science and craft. The Roman engineer was both a chemist and a foreman, overseeing a process where material properties dictated construction techniques, and those techniques, in turn, unlocked the material's full potential. In our modern world of highly specialized fields, this holistic view of building where the person who designs the mix also understands how it will be poured into the roaring sea is a profound lesson waiting to be rediscovered. But with all our modern tools, where did the search for this lost formula truly begin? It started not in a laboratory, but with a book, a single surviving manual from the ancient world that has guided architects for centuries. Marcus Vitruvius Pollio, a Roman military engineer, penned a 10-volume work titled De Architectura around the time of Emperor Augustus. This text is our most direct written link to Roman building practices, a priceless window into their engineering mindset. In its pages, Vitruvius does indeed describe the making of mortar, and he specifically highlights the extraordinary properties of the volcanic ash from Pozzolana. He writes that when mixed with lime and rubble, this material acquires strength not just on land, but even underwater, creating piers that become a single stone mass in the sea. For generations of scholars, this was the foundational clue, the written proof of the secret ingredient. Yet for modern scientists trying to recreate the exact process, Vitruvius becomes a source of profound frustration. His descriptions are maddeningly vague. He provides no precise ratios, no exact mixing times, no detailed instructions for curing conditions or water temperature. He speaks in generalities like a master chef who assumes you already know how to knead the dough. This lack of specificity is not an accident, nor is it a sign of ignorance. It reflects a fundamental truth about how this advanced knowledge was held and transmitted. Roman engineering was not an academic science documented in journals. It was a craft, a hands-on tradition passed down through guilds of master builders and masons. The deepest secrets of the mix, the feel of the correct consistency, the judgment of when the heat from the quicklime was just right, these were skills learned by doing, by apprenticeship, not by reading a textbook. The written word, in Vitruvius's case, served more as a philosophical guide and a catalogue of principles than a step-by-step recipe. This gap between the tantalizing clue in the text and the complete, working formula is precisely what made the mystery of Roman concrete so enduring. For centuries, scholars knew the what, Pozzolana, was key, but they could not decipher the exact how. This sent researchers on a different path, one that leads us to the heart of how we recover lost technologies. You cannot rebuild the past from words alone. The full understanding required turning away from the page and toward the physical artifact itself, to the silent testimony of the concrete blocks that had survived 2,000 years of waves. This beautiful interplay between text and material evidence is the classic dance of historical archaeology. The ancient book gives us the question and a vital hint, but the ancient stone itself holds the final, encrypted answer, written in a language of minerals and crystals that only modern science could learn to read. Modern concrete is considered mature after just 28 days. This is the standard industry benchmark, the point at which it has gained most of its design strength and is ready for use. The chemical reactions that give it that strength largely shut down, leaving a static, inert material. Roman concrete defies this entire timescale. Its story does not end after a month. It is only the first sentence of a narrative that unfolds over centuries. This is the long tale of chemistry, where curing is not a race to a finish line, but a patient, open-ended journey of transformation. At the heart of this enduring process is the long-term Pozzolanic reaction. Unlike modern cement, which reacts quickly and then stops, the volcanic glass in Pozzolana is not fully consumed in the initial mix. Tiny, glassy particles remain, like dormant seeds scattered throughout the stone matrix. For decades, then centuries, minute amounts of moisture from humidity, rain, or seawater continue to seep through the concrete's natural pores. Each droplet becomes a catalyst, slowly dissolving silica from these glass particles and reacting with residual lime. This isn't a flaw of incomplete mixing, it is the system working as intended. The result is a perpetual, microscopic construction project. New crystals, like the reinforcing plates of altobermorite, gradually precipitate in the voids and pores. The internal structure doesn't just stay the same, it becomes denser, more interlocked, and stronger with the passage of time. Imagine a stone that is still quietly growing more stone inside itself, long after the builders have gone. This understanding delivers a profound challenge to contemporary construction philosophy. Our industry is built on speed, on metrics of strength gained per day, on the economic imperative to build fast and move on. We engineer for a known, relatively short design life, often with the expectation of major repair or replacement within a human lifetime. The Roman model asks a different, almost philosophical question. What if we designed for longevity not as a hope but as a chemical certainty? What if, instead of fighting a material's natural tendency to change over time, we engineered that change to be beneficial? This shifts the goal from creating a material that is strong next month to crafting one that grows stronger for the next 500 years. It suggests that for monuments, for critical infrastructure, for the foundations of coastal cities facing a rising ocean, we should consider materials that mature like a fine wine, whose value and resilience are defined not by their initial state, but by their graceful evolution across generations. The true lesson is not about copying an ancient recipe, but about expanding our definition of what a building material can be, from a finished product to a living legacy. The Pantheon's dome is not just an ancient roof, it is a frozen moment of architectural audacity. For nearly 1,900 years, this vast, unreinforced concrete dome has hung in the Roman sky, a perfect hemisphere of stone and light. Its very existence defies the conventional limits of its material, a single, seamless shell spanning 142 feet across. To stand beneath it is to witness the absolute confidence Roman engineers had in their concrete formula. Here, far from the corrosive sea, the material was used not for its reactive chemistry with seawater, but for its supreme structural versatility and strength. The dome is a masterclass in intelligent design, a physical equation solved in volcanic ash and lime. The builders understood that the immense weight of the dome created tremendous compressive forces pushing downward and outward. To manage these stresses, they engineered the dome itself with brilliant subtlety. As the dome rises from its supporting drum, its composition changes. At the heavy base, the concrete is mixed with dense travertine stone, but layer by layer, as the curvature climbs, the aggregate grows lighter, shifting to porous volcanic tuff, and finally, at the very top surrounding the great oculus, to the lightest material of all, pumice. Simultaneously, the thickness of the dome itself tapers, from a robust 20 feet at the base to a mere 4 feet at the rim of the opening. This was not random variation, it was precise, calculated lightweighting. They were removing mass where it was not needed, reducing the overall load on the structure while maintaining integrity, a concept that feels strikingly modern. The result is a structure of breathtaking equilibrium, where material is distributed exactly according to the forces it must bear. Its survival is its most powerful testimony. It has withstood the tremors of countless earthquakes, the settling of the ground beneath it, and nearly 2 millennia of weathering, not as a fragile relic, but as a functioning building. For researchers today, the Pantheon is more than a monument. It is a living laboratory. It provides undeniable physical proof that the Roman concrete formula, even in a non-marine application, could achieve a level of durability and performance that remains a lofty goal. It stands as a silent, permanent challenge, a stone question mark asking why we so often settle for less. The Roman genius with Pozzolana was not a solitary miracle, but a brilliant local expression of a universal truth. Across the ancient world, different cultures independently stumbled upon the same powerful principle, that certain everyday materials, when transformed by fire or simply used in the right way, could create a mortar of surprising strength. This reveals that the core idea behind Roman concrete was not a secret locked in Italy, but a material possibility waiting to be unlocked by observation and necessity. In ancient Asia, for example, builders discovered that the ash from burned rice husks, a common agricultural waste product, possessed remarkable pozzolanic properties. When mixed with lime, this humble ash created a mortar used in structures that have endured for centuries. Similarly, from the Middle East to Mesoamerica, cultures utilized crushed terracotta or fired bricks, materials rich in reactive silica and alumina, to produce durable plasters and binding agents. These were not copies of a Roman blueprint, they were parallel innovations born from local materials and local ingenuity. What unites these disparate traditions is a fundamental geochemical fact. Many natural and even man-made materials, if they contain the right amorphous or non-crystalline silica and alumina, can undergo that slow, strengthening reaction with lime. The Romans simply had the spectacular luck of living atop one of the world's most potent natural deposits. This global perspective changes the quest entirely. It means the goal for modern sustainable construction is not to locate a single lost quarry or to ship volcanic ash around the world, replicating the Roman carbon footprint. Instead, the real opportunity is to embrace the adaptable spirit of the principle itself. The path forward is about looking at our own local landscapes and industrial processes with new eyes. In regions with volcanic activity like the Pacific Rim, natural pozzolans remain a viable, low-carbon resource. In areas dominated by agriculture, materials like rice husk ash or sugar cane bagasse ash offer potential. And in industrialized nations, the answer may lie not in mining, but in repurposing. Fly ash from coal plants and ground granulated blast furnace slag from steel production, materials that would otherwise be waste, are highly effective modern pozzolans. This is the profound legacy of the ancient builders. They point us toward a future where durable, self-healing concrete is not a one-size-fits-all recipe, but a flexible, regional craft. It suggests that the formula for a greener, more resilient built environment might be different in India than in Iceland, but it will be guided by the same timeless chemical wisdom, turning what we have into something that lasts. This brings us to the central tension of modern construction, the reinforced concrete conundrum. In the 19th century, a revolutionary idea emerged, embedding steel bars within concrete. This marriage combined concrete's incredible strength under compression with steel's ability to resist stretching and bending forces. It was the breakthrough that built our world, literally enabling the skyscrapers of our cities and the sprawling bridges that connect them. Yet this brilliant solution came with a hidden, ticking clock. Steel, when encased in concrete, is protected by the high alkalinity of the cement paste. But over time, that protection can fail. Moisture and chlorides from road salt or seawater eventually penetrate the concrete. When they reach the steel, they trigger corrosion. The rust that forms takes up more space than the original metal, creating immense internal pressure that cracks the concrete from within. A self-destructive process spelled out in crumbling parking garages and decaying bridge decks everywhere. Our greatest strength contains the seed of its own decay. The Roman approach to strength was fundamentally different. They never used metal reinforcement. Instead, they mastered the art of guiding forces through pure geometry and mass. They understood that concrete is phenomenally strong when squeezed, but weak when pulled apart. So they designed shapes that kept the material in a state of compression. The arch is the perfect example, a form that channels weight outward and down into massive supporting piers. Their vast vaults and domes are networks of these compressive curves. For additional resilience, they often embedded layers of brick or stone within their concrete pores, not as reinforcement in our sense, but as a kind of internal lattice that helped distribute loads and control cracking. Their strength came from shape, from bulk, and from the inherent toughness of their mix, not from a hidden metal skeleton. This presents us with a difficult but necessary question. In our drive to build taller, longer, and faster, have we made a fundamental trade-off? We have chosen immense short-term strength and construction speed, but in doing so, we have inherently built in a long-term vulnerability. The steel that lets us achieve these wonders also guarantees a costly, energy-intensive cycle of inspection, repair, and eventual replacement. The Roman model, obsessed with durability first, challenges this entire paradigm. It forces a re-evaluation of our priorities, especially for structures where we truly desire permanence, like coastal defenses, nuclear containment vessels, or the foundations of future cities. We cannot simply abandon steel reinforcement. Our architectural ambitions depend on it. But the Roman example is now driving a vital field of research focused on breaking the corrosion cycle. Scientists are exploring non-corrosive reinforcements, such as fiber-reinforced polymer bars, or developing new concrete mixes that are so dense and chemically tailored that they become nearly impervious to the ingress of harmful agents. The goal is a modern hybrid, a material that borrows the durability-first philosophy of the ancients while utilizing the tools of the present. It asks us to design not just for the load a structure will bear on opening day, but for the silent, chemical battle it will fight for the next 1,000 years. Yet the path from a brilliant laboratory breakthrough to a safe, certified building material is a long and arduous one. A concrete that can heal its own cracks sounds like science fiction, but for engineers, the first question is far more practical: will it meet the code? Our modern world is built on a foundation of rigorous building codes, a thicket of regulations designed to ensure every structure is safe for the people who live, work, and travel within it. These codes are overwhelmingly prescriptive, meaning they specify exactly what materials can be used and in what proportions. For over a century, the undisputed king of these specifications has been Portland cement. Its behavior is meticulously documented, its failure modes are well understood, and its production is standardized across the globe. Introducing a new material based on a 2,000-year-old volcanic ash recipe is not as simple as proving it works. You must prove it fits within a legal and technical framework built for a completely different paradigm. Imagine trying to certify a new, miraculous medicine using regulations written only for aspirin. The challenge is monumental. To gain approval, any new concrete mix must undergo a battery of standardized tests that simulate a lifetime of abuse. Engineers must demonstrate its compressive strength, its ability to withstand hundreds of rapid freeze and thaw cycles without crumbling, its fire resistance, and its long-term stability under constant load, a property known as creep. This process is slow, expensive, and inherently conservative, and for good reason. The primary mandate is public safety, not innovation. This creates a fascinating tension. The very system that protects us from shoddy construction can also inadvertently lock out potentially superior, more sustainable alternatives. A material that gains strength over centuries is difficult to validate with tests that last only months. So, the work now expands beyond the chemistry lab and into the realm of policy and persuasion. Pioneering researchers and engineers are engaging with standards organizations, advocating for a shift from prescriptive codes to performance-based specifications. Instead of mandating the use of Portland cement, a performance-based code would set the required outcomes. A structure must achieve this strength, this durability, this fire rating. How you get there with a traditional mix or a pozzolan-rich, lime-based Roman-inspired blend would be up to the engineer, provided they can prove it meets the standard. This is the critical next frontier, translating ancient material wisdom into a modern language of safety and reliability that builders, insurers, and governments can trust. The true test of this rediscovered formula will not be in a wave tank, but in a committee room where the future of our built environment is quietly being negotiated. The revival of this ancient technology faces a wall of modern realities. Even with a perfect recipe and updated building codes, we must confront a daunting practical question: can we rebuild the industry that once made it possible? The Roman supply chain was a marvel of its time, centered on specific, potent volcanic deposits and a network of skilled labor. Recreating that today on a global scale is a puzzle of economics and logistics. The first hurdle is the raw material itself. High-quality natural pozzolana, the volcanic ash that was the cornerstone of the Roman mix, is not evenly scattered across the planet. It is concentrated in regions with recent volcanic activity like Italy, parts of the western United States, or Indonesia. For a project in Germany or Canada, shipping vast quantities of volcanic ash halfway around the world would completely negate the environmental benefits, trading carbon from cement kilns for carbon from cargo ships. This forces us to look closer to home, to the materials already in our backyard. Industrial byproducts like fly ash from coal plants or slag from steel mills offer a promising alternative, turning waste into a resource. But here, consistency becomes the challenge. The chemical composition of fly ash can vary dramatically from one power plant to another, even from one day to the next, depending on the coal source and combustion conditions. For an engineer designing a bridge, that variability is a nightmare. Concrete must be predictable, its strength guaranteed. Using these alternative materials requires sophisticated quality control and blending processes to create a uniform, reliable product, adding layers of complexity and cost that the standard Portland cement supply chain has long since smoothed out. Then there is the process itself. Adopting a true hot mixing technique using reactive quicklime would mean changing fundamental industry habits. While producing quicklime is less carbon-intensive than making Portland cement, it still requires high-temperature kilns. Most modern plants are not configured for it, meaning new facilities would need to be built or old ones extensively retrofitted, a massive capital investment. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, are the people who will actually use it. Construction is a trade built on rhythm and familiarity. A crew that has spent decades working with one specific type of concrete mix knows its feel, its setting time, how it flows into forms. Introducing a new material with different working properties, a different texture, or a different curing behavior would require retraining millions of workers worldwide. It demands new guidelines, new safety protocols, and a period of adjustment where mistakes could be costly. This reveals the true scale of the challenge. Reviving the Roman formula is not merely a laboratory experiment. It is an endeavor that must redesign an entire ecosystem, from the mines and kilns to the tools in a worker's hands and the training manuals they study. It asks whether our global construction industry, a behemoth optimized for a century of Portland cement, can find the will and the way to learn an old, new language of building. The idea of a material that heals itself is not a futuristic fantasy, but a quiet reality we have witnessed for 2,000 years. This self-repairing property in Roman concrete represents one of the earliest and most profound examples of biomimicry in human history, where engineering consciously imitates the genius of biological systems. In nature, when a bone fractures, the body doesn't just patch the break. It initiates a complex cascade of cellular activity that deposits new mineral, eventually restoring strength to the injured site. The Roman formula achieved something remarkably similar on a geological timescale. Their concrete, with its reactive lime clasts and porous matrix, possessed a built-in repair kit, a slow-motion chemical response to damage that mirrors the biological principle of healing. This ancient insight is now guiding one of the most exciting frontiers in modern material science, the quest to create truly self-healing infrastructure. Today's researchers are not just studying the Roman model, they are attempting to improve upon it with 21st century tools. One promising approach involves embedding tiny, brittle capsules filled with a healing agent directly into the concrete mix during production. These capsules are designed to remain inert until a crack forms. As the fissure propagates through the material, it ruptures the capsules, releasing their contents into the void. The healing agent can be a lime-saturated solution designed to recrystallize and seal the crack, much like the Roman process, or it can be something even more ingenious like dormant bacterial spores and a nutrient source. When water enters the crack, it activates the bacteria, which then metabolize the nutrients and precipitate calcite, a natural mineral glue, effectively filling the gap from the inside out. These bioconcrete experiments are a direct descendant of the principle observed in the ancient harbors. The Roman system provides the ultimate natural blueprint, showing us that a durable material doesn't have to be static and unchanging. It can be dynamic and responsive. By meticulously studying how the lime clasts dissolve and travel through the concrete's microscopic waterways to recrystallize, scientists are decoding the exact chemical and physical conditions required for autonomous repair. This knowledge is then used to design synthetic systems that can perform the same function but faster and more reliably. The potential impact is transformative. Imagine a bridge that senses the first hairline fracture in a critical support and silently repairs it before the damage ever becomes visible. Picture underground pipelines or tunnel linings that conceal their own leaks, or coastal seawalls that continuously fortify themselves against wave erosion. This would not only dramatically extend the service life of our most vital structures, but it would slash the astronomical costs and disruptions associated with constant inspection and maintenance. It represents a fundamental shift from reactive repair to proactive resilience, a philosophy written in Roman stone, now being translated into the language of modern innovation. This leads us to a profound and humbling question about the nature of discovery itself. To what degree did the Roman engineer, standing on a wooden scaffold above the churning sea, truly understand the miracle he was commanding? The evidence suggests they were unparalleled masters of the empirical art. Through generations of trial and error, they observed a clear, repeatable phenomenon. Combine this specific ash from Pozzolana with quicklime and seawater, and you create a stone that grows stronger for centuries. They perfected the recipe through meticulous observation, adjusting ratios, testing aggregates, and refining their placement techniques until the outcome was guaranteed. This was a technology honed by practice, not derived from theory. They operated without any concept of molecules, chemical bonds, or long-term reaction kinetics. The atomic world, where silica dissolved and crystalline lattices formed, was a complete and total mystery to them. Their framework was one of cause and effect, grounded in the physical world they could see and touch. They knew the formula worked, and they knew how to execute it flawlessly. But the intricate dance of ions and minerals that unfolded within their walls remained a hidden script. This reality places their achievement in a fascinating light. It represents a pinnacle of practical engineering that soared ahead of fundamental scientific understanding by nearly 2,000 years. Their genius was in reading the clues written by nature itself, in recognizing a powerful material interaction, and then systematically refining it into a reliable tool of empire. They solved the problem of eternal construction through relentless experimentation and accumulated craft knowledge, passed from master to apprentice. Our modern journey, then, is not one of simple rediscovery, but of completing a magnificent loop of knowledge. We arrive at the same destination of durable concrete, but we travel the opposite path. We start with the deep analytical science with our electron microscopes and atomic models, to finally decode the principles behind the empirical result they achieved. We provide the why to their magnificent how. This fusion is where true progress lies. It marries their hands-on, observational brilliance with our capacity for microscopic analysis and theoretical modeling. It reminds us that technological advancement is not a straight line, but often a spiral where practical mastery can illuminate a path that science, centuries later, must work to explain. In the silent, enduring strength of a Roman pier, we find a testament not just to forgotten chemistry, but to the timeless power of human observation and the enduring quest to build a legacy that outlasts the builders themselves. This fusion of ancient craft and modern analysis has given birth to an entirely new way of seeing the past. The quest to crack the Roman concrete code could not have succeeded within the silos of a single academic field. It demanded a conversation between disciplines that had rarely spoken the same language. On one side stood the archaeologists, the guardians of context. At sites like the ancient harbor of Portus Cossanus, they carefully extracted core samples not as mere curiosities, but as vital pieces of evidence, each layer telling a story of construction and environmental change. They provided the when and the where, the crucial framework of history that turned a material sample into a chapter in a human story. On the other side stood the materials scientists, geologists, and chemists, armed with tools that see what the eye cannot. They placed those same samples under electron microscopes, using X-rays to map their atomic architecture. Where an archaeologist saw a gray lump of stone, they saw a crystalline forest of stretlingite and altobermorite, a chemical narrative written in mineral form. Then came the civil engineers who translated those microscopic findings into real-world performance. They took the proposed ancient recipes, cast new samples, and subjected them to brutal mechanical tests, quantifying strength, durability, and that magical self-healing potential. This collaborative dance has matured into a vibrant, interdisciplinary field often called archaeometry or heritage science. It is no longer enough to simply date an artifact or describe its appearance. The new approach asks, what is it made of, how was it made, and most importantly, what can its material intelligence teach us today? The success of this model is its most powerful legacy. It proves that the deepest secrets of antiquity are not unlocked by a lone genius in a library or a lab, but by a shared table where a historian's map sits beside a geologist's thin section and an engineer's stress test data. They must learn to speak a common tongue, one built on shared curiosity rather than specialized jargon. This collaborative spirit is now a blueprint for tackling other enduring historical mysteries, from the corrosion-resistant properties of the Delhi iron pillar to the legendary flexibility of Damascus steel. It demonstrates that the past holds more than just stories, it holds data, and that data can become a toolkit for the future. When we bridge the gap between the humanities and the sciences, we do not just solve old puzzles, we discover entirely new questions, and with them, new possibilities for our world. The potential of this ancient wisdom stretches far beyond the familiar shores of our own planet. As humanity sets its sights on the stars, we face a construction problem of cosmic proportions. Building habitats on the Moon or Mars using materials shipped from Earth is an economic and logistical impossibility. Every ounce of payload costs a fortune, making traditional concrete, with its heavy bags of Portland cement, a non-starter. Here, the Roman principle of using local materials offers a brilliant escape route. Scientists are actively investigating the use of regolith, the dusty soil that blankets these alien worlds, as a modern-day pozzolana. Martian and lunar soil, when analyzed, contain volcanic minerals not unlike those found near Pozzolanic. The vision is to process this regolith, perhaps using concentrated solar heat or other in-situ resources, to create a binder. Mixed with aggregate made from crushed local rock, it could form a concrete literally made from the ground beneath astronauts' feet. This isn't science fiction. It's a practical research path at space agencies, turning the challenge of a barren landscape into the very solution for shelter. It means the first permanent structures on another world might not be metallic modules from Earth, but stone dwellings forged from the planet itself, built with a logic perfected 2 millennia ago on the shores of the Mediterranean. Back on our own blue planet, the application is both urgent and poetic. Coastal cities worldwide are grappling with the existential threat of rising seas and intensifying storms. Our current defenses are often static, expensive, and destined to decay. Now envision a different kind of seawall, constructed from a modern concrete inspired by the Roman recipe. This barrier would not just resist the ocean, it would engage with it. Each wave that crashes against it would carry not just force, but the chemical ingredients for fortification. Seawater would seep into its designed porosity, triggering the slow growth of strengthening minerals within. Over years and decades, instead of eroding, the wall would grow denser and more resilient, a living barrier that matures alongside the rising tide. This transforms the sea from a perpetual adversary into a reluctant partner in our own defense. Such a material could redefine our relationship with the coast, enabling protections that are sustainable, adaptive, and truly long-term. The journey from a 2,000-year-old harbor to a climate-resilient city of the future is a direct line drawn not in sand, but in the enduring logic of a forgotten stone. It proves that sometimes the most forward-looking blueprint for our survival is waiting for us in the archives of the ancient world. The Roman harbor at Caesarea is a marvel, but it is not the whole story. To place these ancient builders on a pedestal of infallibility does them a disservice, for it turns their concrete from a human achievement into a myth. The truth is more grounded and in many ways more impressive. Not every Roman structure stands unblemished today. Inland, away from the reactive chemistry of seawater, some of their concrete formulations did experience weathering and decay, particularly if they used lower-quality local materials or less precise mixes. They were not wizards, they were pragmatic engineers working with the resources at hand. This leads to the second crucial point. There was no single, magical lost formula scribbled on a secret scroll. What the Romans possessed was a versatile family of recipes, a flexible toolkit of knowledge. A mix for a harbor breakwater, designed to cure in seawater, would differ from the blend used for an aqueduct in the hills, which would differ again from the lightweight concrete for a soaring dome. They adapted their approach based on location, purpose, and available materials, shipping volcanic ash across the sea when they could, but also learning to use local clays, crushed brick, or other reactive substitutes when necessary. Their genius was in understanding the principle, not in clinging to a rigid prescription. Finally, and most importantly, their success was not a sudden invention or a gift from the gods. It was the hard-won result of systematic experimentation and refinement over centuries, conducted within the unique context of a vast, stable, and resource-rich empire. This was a civilization that thought in terms of centuries, not fiscal quarters, and that poured immense wealth and political will into monumental, permanent construction. Roads, aqueducts, temples, and harbors were not just utilities. They were the very pillars of Roman identity and power, worthy of long-term investment. By demystifying their achievement, we do not diminish it, we elevate it to something even more powerful. A replicable triumph of human observation, perseverance, and societal prioritization. It moves from being a locked arcane secret to an open testament of what is possible when ingenuity is sustained by collective purpose. This shift in perspective is vital, for it makes the recovery of their wisdom not a nostalgic hunt for a phantom, but an inspiring, attainable blueprint for our own future. This rediscovery presents us not just with a technical challenge, but with a profound ethical choice. As we stand on the verge of recreating a material that can last for millennia, we must ask ourselves where its first and best use should be. One powerful argument points toward the past, toward the very monuments that taught us this secret. Using a scientifically matched Roman-style concrete for restoration work offers an unprecedented level of historical fidelity. When a section of an ancient aqueduct or a seaside pier requires stabilization, repairing it with a material that behaves identically to the original is the ultimate act of respect. It ensures the structure continues to age and interact with its environment as its builders intended, preserving its authenticity for future generations to study and admire. This approach treats the knowledge as a key to conservation, a way to honor and maintain the legacy we have inherited. Yet another compelling perspective looks firmly toward the future. With coastal cities threatened by rising seas and our infrastructure crumbling under the weight of time and use, withholding a demonstrably more durable and sustainable material from new construction could be seen as an abdication of responsibility. The societal good achieved by building resilient seawalls, longer-lasting bridges, and more sustainable housing is immense. This argument asks whether our primary duty is to the silent stones of history or to the living communities who need safer, stronger foundations for the centuries ahead. It frames the rediscovered formula as a tool for human progress, a gift from the past meant to be applied to the urgent problems of the present. This tension between conserving the past and building the future is the poignant dilemma born from this reclaimed knowledge. It forces us to consider the weight of the responsibilities that come with unlocking a lost art. The choice is not necessarily binary, but it requires thoughtful prioritization and dialogue. Do we first perfect the material to become master restorers of ancient wonders, or do we immediately adapt its principles to forge a new era of durable, climate-resilient architecture? The answer may lie in a balanced path where research serves both purposes, but the question itself reshapes the journey from a simple scientific pursuit into a deeper reflection on what we value, what we preserve, and what kind of world we choose to build with the wisdom of ages finally in our hands. Behind every enduring stone was a human hand guided by a disciplined mind. The Roman engineer, the architectus, was far more than a designer. He was a master of logistics, chemistry, and labor management, operating within a machine of astonishing scale. This system began deep in quarries, where teams extracted limestone for lime and travertine for aggregate, and extended across the empire on a network of roads and ships, moving volcanic ash from Pozzolana to distant shorelines. The architectus oversaw it all, from selecting the sand to directing the crews who mixed the volatile quicklime and ash in vast troughs. These laborers, whose names are lost to history, possessed a craft knowledge passed through generations, a tactile understanding of the mix's consistency, and the precise moment to pour it into wooden forms. They worked within a culture that viewed construction not as a temporary job, but as a sacred contribution to Rome's eternal glory. This was an engineering ethos in its purest form, a seamless blend of ambitious vision and granular, practical execution. They thought in terms of watersheds and coastlines, designing aqueducts with precise gradients over miles and harbors that considered tidal patterns centuries into the future. Their problem-solving was holistic, integrating material science, geology, hydrology, and human labor into a single, coherent plan. This mindset is perhaps their most elusive legacy, even more than the chemical formula. In our era of extreme specialization, we have brilliant material scientists who may never visit a construction site, and project managers who may not understand the chemistry of their concrete. The Roman model challenges that division. It suggests that true resilience is born when the person who understands the molecular behavior of ash also understands the force of the winter sea on a breakwater and the needs of the crew placing it. By seeking their formula, we are ultimately seeking to reconnect with that integrated way of thinking, one that valued adaptation to local conditions, respected material intelligence, and built with a patient confidence in permanence. Their greatest secret may not have been a hidden ingredient, but a hidden perspective, the courage to build for a future they would never see, trusting in the slow, silent work of stone and time. The silent stones of Caesarea and the Pantheon ask us to reconsider the very meaning of progress. Our journey through time and science reveals that this lost Roman formula is far more than a historical footnote. It is a beacon of sustainable innovation. We have traced a story where volcanic ash, hot lime, and seawater combine to create a material that defies time, heals its own wounds, and grows stronger through adversity. These are not mythical properties, but measurable chemical realities we are only now learning to replicate with modern tools. This rediscovery quietly upends our assumptions. It reminds us that ancient builders, through patient observation and relentless experimentation, possessed an empirically won wisdom that we, with all our sophisticated technology, are still scrambling to fully understand and reclaim. They achieved a harmony with their environment that our industrial processes have often forgotten. turning corrosive seawater into a partner and designing for a timescale that stretches beyond centuries. As we now face the twin pressing challenges of a changing climate and aging infrastructure, the lessons embedded in this 2,000-year-old concrete offer more than just a better recipe. They offer a hopeful philosophy for moving forward. They point toward a future where we build not just for efficiency or for our own generation, but for resilience and for the millennia to come. This is the profound invitation to look to the past not with nostalgia, but as a source of ingenious solutions for a sustainable future. It encourages us to ask what other forgotten wisdoms might be waiting in plain sight, ready to inspire the next great leap forward. If you found this fusion of ancient history and cutting-edge science fascinating, consider subscribing for more deep dives into the enduring mysteries that shape our world. Let us know in the comments which other lost technology or ancient innovation you think we should explore next.